Right now on Close Up, not guilty. A Des Moines Register reporter is acquitted of charges stemming from the summer protests. This morning, we speak with Iowa Freedom of Information Council Executive Director Randy Evans about what this case means for journalists in Iowa and around the country. Plus, we get to know Polk County's new treasurer, Mary Wells, why the county supervisors were so impressed with her resume. Close Up starts right now.
This is Iowa's news leader. This is KCCI 8 News Close Up.
Good morning and thank you for joining us. I'm Scott Carpenter. We start with this past week's news. Des Moines Register reporter Andrea Sahori was acquitted of all charges following her arrest covering Black Lives Matter protests this summer. Sahori spoke to the media following her not guilty verdict. She says the past few months have been tough, but she's ready to get back to work.
I have been dealing with a lot of pressure and anxiety and trauma from the assault, and especially, continuing to do my job has been, difficult, but it's important. That's why I'm in this field. I maintain that it's important to be documenting history and informing our communities, and it just felt really nice, to finally tell my story.
KCCI did reach out to Polk County Attorney John Sarcone for comment on why this case went to trial. Sarcone maintains that Sahori stayed for an hour and a half after the dispersal order, pulled away from a police officer who tried to arrest her, and didn't have press credentials. So this morning, we hear from Executive Director of the Iowa Freedom of Information Council, Randy Evans. Evans shares his reaction to the verdict and his disappointment that it went to trial. He spoke with KCCI's Steve Carlin.
Action to the acquittal of Des Moines Register reporter Andrea Sahori yesterday on disorderly conduct charges, interference with official acts relating to the summer Black Lives Matter protests.
Well, I'm gratified by the jury's verdict. I regret that it took a trial to reach this point. I think it was a case where clearly the prosecutors and police failed to take note of the important role that journalists play in covering events such as the protests.
Did it surprise you that it got this far? Because okay, she may not have had press credentials on her at the time, but she is a reporter for the Des Moines Register, an accredited reporter. Does it surprise you that it went all the way to trial?
Yes, because, I'm not critical of the police for detaining her, because the situation at Merle Hay Mall and in that vicinity last May 31st was chaotic. It was noisy. There was loudspeakers and people yelling and violence that was going on. Police were having to make rapid decisions. So I don't fault the police for detaining her, but once it was established that she was a journalist, that she was there under direction from her bosses, that she worked for the Des Moines Register. I'm disappointed that police or the Polk County Attorney's Office at that point didn't say this was all an unfortunate misunderstanding and drop the charges then, because it was obvious from her journalism colleagues, both from the Register as well as other media outlets, that she was there in a professional capacity, that she wasn't there engaging in violence, vandalism, burglary of the stores at Merle Hay Mall. She was there as a journalist, and it's regrettable that it took 2.5 days of a jury's time to reach this outcome.
Okay, for people, Randy, who maybe don't understand the way journalists do their jobs, especially in a situation like this, Polk County Attorney John Sarcone did tell us this week that Andrea Sahori was out in front of the crowd for an hour and a half, and did not pay attention to the police officers' warnings to move back. Was she in some violation of some journalistic code or way of doing our jobs by being out front and possibly putting herself in danger or in this position to be arrested?
I think the testimony during the trial showed that
I wasn't doing anything wrong.
Andrea and Katie Aiken, who was a second Register reporter there, as well as television journalists, were moving throughout the afternoon and early evening hours, trying to get close enough to be able to tell people what was occurring without getting in the way of police. The testimony during the trial was that Andrea Sahuri and other journalists moved back and forth across the streets to get away from where the violence was occurring. But I think that to characterize her conduct as somehow suggesting that she was a part of the protest is not accurate. Part of a journalist's job at an event such as those protests is to be able to tell and to show readers and viewers what is occurring, what's occurring with vandalism and the violence, what the motivations of people who are taking part in the protest. And I differentiate the protest from the violence because nobody is condoning the violence that occurred, but the Constitution allows people to peaceably assemble and express their opinions about what government is doing. And I think it is a mischaracterization to somehow tie Andrea Sahuri's conduct as a reporter in with those who were breaking the law.
Up next, has there ever been a trial like this before? We continue our conversation with Randy Evans next.
Time never stops. Minutes become...
Welcome back to Close Up. KCCI's Steve Carlin wraps up his conversation with Executive Director of the Freedom of Information Council, Randy Evans, and Trial of Des Moines Register reporter Andrea Sahuri. Evans shares why he's concerned this case could set a precedent.
Do you think this will or should change the way that Iowa media outlets cover news like this?
Oh, I think it will. I think that it has become obvious to media managers that they need to ensure that their employees who are out there on the scene, making video, making photographs, interviewing people, need to be clearly identified. but I also I worry that the comments that Mr. Sarcone made, where he's continuing to equate the presence of journalists at the scene of these kinds of events as being participants in the event, that to me sends a signal that we shouldn't be surprised if Des Moines Police and the Polk County Attorney's Office want to go through this whole process again in the future.
Okay, Randy, we've both been around here a long time. I can't remember another case like this. Can you remember one?
There was a Register reporter who was arrested in 2008 during the floods. He was interviewing people in an area that was that police were evacuating, where there was fear of a levee breach. And he was doing what Andrea was, talking to people who were directly involved. He was charged. He was acquitted of 3 charges and found guilty of 1 lesser charge. But in my 40 years in Des Moines, those are the only 2 cases that come to mind. But I worry that the climate that we're in, where the media is not winning popularity contests, I worry that we're going to see more of these kinds of incidents where police decide to arrest reporters for shining the spotlight on what is occurring. And that's the role that journalists have occupied since the founding of the United States. That's the reason the First Amendment is there, to basically be the eyes and ears of the citizens and telling the public what is going on involving protesters in this case, or police officers.
Okay. This case, the Sahuri case, received worldwide attention. Some people who maybe don't understand the importance of press freedom in this country may not understand why that is so important in other parts of the world. If you could explain the importance of press freedom here and why this case received the attention it did.
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. One is it is such an aberration for a journalist to be prosecuted criminally for doing their jobs, period. That is, almost unheard of in the United States. And the attention, the negative attention that Des Moines and Iowa received is the kind of bad publicity that does not reflect well on our state. But I think internationally, the media is under threat of arrest and prosecution much more routinely in areas where there are not strong democracies. And I think that, it's easy for us to become complacent and fail to realize how tenuous that is in the United States if people who work as journalists are being subjected to prosecution for trying to do their jobs. Andrea Sahuri was not there to break windows, to vandalize stores, to throw rocks and bottles or anything of the sort at police. She was there simply to tell the people of Des Moines what was going on in their community. And I regret that the Polk County attorney seems to think that under an order by police to get out, that the media can be silenced. They can't break the law, but the orders of police officers have to be reasonable. And I don't think that the county attorney's view of what is allowable and not allowable is a reasonable approach. There were lots and lots of journalists, television journalists, print reporters who were at the United States Capitol in January. Their mere presence on the grounds of the United States Capitol didn't make them a part of the insurrection. And for John Sarcone to take the position basically that if journalists are there, they're under the risk of being arrested, we're in far more trouble than we think we are.
Next on Close Up, Polk County's new treasurer, why the county supervisors were so impressed with Mary Wells. That's after this break.
That's not bacon.
Welcome back to Close Up. This past week, the Polk County Board of Supervisors announced they had chosen a new county treasurer. Mary Wells will serve out the remainder of Mary Maloney's term. Maloney passed away suddenly in January. KCCI's Steve Carlin spoke with Wells about her new position. Joining them for the conversation was Polk County Supervisor Angela Connolly.
Angela, let's start with you. Before we get to know Mary, I want to hear a little bit about Mary Maloney, who Mary Wells is replacing. Longtime Polk County treasurer suddenly passed away in January. Please tell us a little bit about Mary Maloney.
Well, for me, you know, she really was a trusted friend and a real mentor. For me, she was in the very beginning who I went to when I first got elected, like she did to so many fellow Democrats and women particularly. She really mentored them and helped them, guide them through all of everything that we did to get through the party and through elections. She showed up at every event. She was always there as a friend, as a mentor. And then all of the things that she did as in her leadership, you know, she was a real trailblazer when it came to technology, everything she did in customer service through the treasurer's office. She was way before her time, I think. And then everything she did through the Association of Counties, through the treasurer counties. She really did a great job. We were really proud of her.
Okay, and she served the county for how long, Angela?
That's almost 7 terms. She was the
Okay.
longest standing elected official. She used to say she was the top vote getter, and she really was the top vote getter.
Okay, and this is no small department. A lot of money runs through there. A lot of people work there.
Absolutely. Yeah. During the pandemic, especially, we tried to, car business didn't go away, and people were certainly nervous about trying to make sure they got their car titles. So Mary came up with the appointments and trying to figure out how we were going to get people through that door during this pandemic. And we made it work. 65 employees working full time on Saturdays just to keep up with the customer service, because that's what she was about, customer service.
Okay, so there are your marching orders, Mary Wells. Did you know Mary Maloney before she passed away?
I did not. I did not have that pleasure.
Okay, all right, but you have big shoes to fill. How do you come at this job? Please tell us a little bit about your background and how you plan to take the department forward.
Well, I do bring to this job is leadership. I have over 20 years of experience in customer support. I bring my military background as well as my education. So I have my leadership abilities, relationship management. And so I bring those things to the table, and with being able to support the customers. And I've done that for over 20 plus years, working for companies such as Walmart Blue Cross Blue Shield, Wells Fargo, Nationwide, and currently at DXC Technology. So customer support is pretty much what I've done in the past. Relationship management, as I said, and working with customers, technology, and that personnel management. And I want to come in and, continue that legacy and just build on that. So Mary has done a great job. She left me with a great staff. And so I just want to continue providing great service to the Polk County residents.
Okay, a military and a private company background. Why did you decide on public service?
Well, I've always served in the community. I'm very active in the community. I love serving, and customer support, whether it's a private sector or public sector, that's just where I feel I can be at my best in delivering. I've also started a nonprofit. So I'm just really involved in the community. Our nonprofit, Investing My Future, it's been around for over 10 years. So I enjoy supporting the community. So it's just a natural fit for me.
Okay. Angela, how did the supervisors settle on Mary?
Well, we accepted some applications, and she really rose to the top for so many reasons. Her philanthropy work, her great leadership, her commitment to the community. We felt that she was really going to be a great fit for us. Not only the work in the treasurer's office, that I know she'll do a great job, but also really working in the community, I think, is going to be something that she's really going to enjoy and really go in with full force.
We wrap up our conversation with new Polk County Treasurer Mary Wells after this break. Welcome back to Close Up. KCCI's Steve Carlin wraps up his conversation with Polk County Supervisor Angela Connolly and the new Polk County Treasurer, Mary Wells.
Mary, this is an elected position, so any apprehension about that? I don't know if I would want to put my work up to a vote. What do you think about that going into a public position where people elect you to office?
I'm absolutely on board. I can't wait to win my seat. I'm definitely going for it. I'm well known in the community. I've been very positive and active. And, you know, when you have a name like Mary, it's just going to carry forward because I've got that Mary recognition. So I'm ready to go win that seat.
Okay, good for you. Well, the pandemic is changing the way all of us work. I mean, here we are, the three of us meeting on Zoom right now. Mary, have you had a chance to speak with many of the staff and kind of get a feel for not just the Treasurer's Office as a whole, but how the Treasurer's Office is working during the pandemic? Because this is going to last for a while.
That is true. And I did get an opportunity to do a quick walkthrough meet and greet with the staff on yesterday, but I don't officially take office until March 23rd. So I'm ready to get started. And on that day, we'll start looking at what's going on in the office. And I just need to be a sponge right out the gate.
Okay. And, you know, a department like that, there are a lot of people who have been on staff for a long time. I'm sure you'll accept the benefit of having some longtime people there who can help you move into your position.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's great to have tenured staff. I know that there's been some hiring because we've had some retirements go through. So just looking forward to working with those individuals and take that and, you know, my team building is what I like doing and taking that energy and build on what they already know. So I'm sharing that information and making sure that we do our best to support Polk County residents.
So you're going to use those National Guard platoon leader skills is what you're going to do. Okay.
Leadership is what I do.
Thank you for joining us for KCCI 8 News Close Up. Special thanks to everybody that joined us and KCCI's Steve Carlin for conducting the interviews. We will see you back here next Sunday. Have a great day. Have a great week.